Welcome to Let's Therapy, where we get real and raw about your mental health, faith, and blended family. We're your hosts, counselors Scott and Vanessa Martindale. Now let's therapy. Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Let's Therapy. We are your hosts, Scott and Vanessa Martindale. We are so excited to be with you today.
Hello.
As we dive in and talk about really sensitive issues as it deals with counseling, as it deals with mental health, all of these things. And today we're going to talk about one that when I read the topic, and again, we poll our audience a lot, and they send us stuff, hey, we'd love for you to talk about this. We'd love for you to talk about that. So today we're going to talk about abandonment and how to help your kids through it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And so you guys, I want to give a definition to abandonment. And there's actually different types of abandonment. There's physical abandonment. There's emotional abandonment. There's even what's called trauma abandonment. And so just to kind of give you, a little bit about abandonment. Abandonment issues develop out of a fear of being abandoned. Yeah. And this can happen in so many different ways. Like I said, emotionally or physically. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've
gone physically,
things like that. It can be, we deal with a lot of blended families. That's our ministry. And so abandonment can look like that whenever your parents get divorced, maybe one parent kind of goes off the radar. Yeah. Like it's too much for them and you're no longer seeing dad or mom like you used to, and you feel abandoned. Or maybe your parents moved to, one of your parents moves to a different town, or because your parents' divorce was so traumatic, your mom or dad has emotionally cut you off because they don't know how to cope. And so therefore they are not emotionally investing into the child anymore. And so this is what abandonment can look like, and some common signs, I guess, so to speak, of abandonment. And this can happen a lot. Since we're specifically talking about children, and depending on the age, inconsolable crying when a parent or caregiver leaves, attaching too quickly to somebody, forming unhealthy relationships, clingy behavior, inability to say goodbye, or even for short amounts of time, anxiety and depression, refusing comfort, extreme jealousy over a parent or friends. Those and again, these are some of the things that are signs of abandonment issues that we can see in our kiddos.
You said something a minute ago, and it just kind of triggered something for me when you talk about the concept of attaching too quickly. So again, we work with blended families on all different spectrums. I mean, they're all over the place. And I've seen this and I've heard this story so many times where, a new relationship is formed and I ask the question, well, how did, bonding with the children go? And they say, well, gosh, they just attached right to me. And I'm thinking in my head, as you said that, how many of those kids are dealing with that abandonment issue? Yeah. Dealing with this concept of, hey, listen, what was once very healthy for me has now been fractured. And so the things that I used to know and the way that I felt is now just, I use the word abandoned, it is left. It is not there anymore. I mean, that's really what that word means. And so this unhealthy idea that I need to attach to something new in my life is definitely a telltale sign, along with, I think, there's physical signs. There's also, I think, emotional signs that they are self-protecting a lot of times. Yes. So they're not, we talked about this concept of inner vows. And we've associated that in, really adults, but really children, I think, make those as well. When they get disappointed, when they feel like they can't communicate, when they feel like their needs are not going to be met. So they're kind of stifled at a certain level.
Yeah. And so you guys, what are some things that we can do to help our kids through that? So if you're seeing that your kiddo has been emotionally abandoned, maybe even physically abandoned by a parent, what are some things that we can do to help create that strong, healthy attachment? And we're going to be doing an episode coming up soon on attachment. So I want you to follow up and listen on that. But there are things that we can do to create healthy attachment. And this can be by simply providing a safe and supportive environment. We talk about this all the time. We can control what goes on in our home. And so if you see that your children are experiencing that abandonment, being super supportive and providing a just very structured and routine and home that they feel like they can say anything that they are feeling, or that they can come to you. It can even be a physical type of comfort, making sure that they have a comfortable bed, things like that, depending on what the other parent's house is like. I mean, it could be that they don't even have basic needs, and just providing that can give them a sense of comfort and stability.
I'm going to talk about a problem, then I'm going to give you kind of the solution side of this. But the one part that we look at abandonment and we always associate it to physical, but I want to touch the emotional side because I think this is probably the most damaging side. The emotional abandonment, especially in blended families, can really associate itself in the fact that I may physically receive you to come on visits. So we may, as a blended family, your children may come to the house, but I'm emotionally just not there.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they really don't. They stifle their children's sense of expression. They hold their children to a really high standard of saying, "Hey, you have to get here in order to get my love and affection."
Yeah.
They treat their children as peers, so they really don't treat their children the way children are supposed to be treated.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm physically here, but I'm emotionally gone.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine as a child is experiencing this going, I get to see my other parent, but I'm not really being fed emotionally. In fact, I may be even ridiculed as a child. So as a parent in a healthy situation, and if you're experiencing the other parent being kind of emotionally distant, and you may also experience this in a way that they don't call to check on their children, they don't ever get involved with things that are not pressing towards them. We talked about narcissism a little bit earlier, so they may have an extreme narcissism, and that causes emotional abandonment. So what we want to do is open and encourage communication.
Yeah.
So children learn really quickly when to talk and when not to talk.
Yeah.
And if they're being stifled or emotionally abandoned in one area, you want to make sure that you provide that open, honest communication and tell them, "Hey, this is a safe place. You can talk to me. I'm going to affirm your feelings, and I'm going to affirm your sense of value and your sense of being."
Yeah, no, that's good. And for kids too, it can be as simple as touch. Gentle touch. You may experience children, maybe your children were abused. I know that we see a lot of different families, a lot of different situations where this has been the case. Mm-hmm. And so positive touch and gentle touch, it can be deeply healing for a child that's been abused. And it can also be scary if they experience touch in a negative way, or if they've never experienced it at all. Maybe they have a parent that was just they did not physically hug them or tell them that they were loved. This is where touch can be like a hug, or, "Hey, come sit in my lap and let me give you a hug," or hold their hand, or maybe it's brushing their hair. But there is so much power in touch and in physical touch when done in a sweet and positive and healthy way.
You say that, and I know this doesn't deal with blended families, but I was just thinking about kids who kind of in the foster system.
Yeah.
People who are in foster care, and kids that come in the house, and they are living abandonment.
Yeah.
Emotional, physical, just complete abandonment.
Yeah.
And just that concept of just one hug from somebody who they feel affirms them can literally just kind of put air back in the room or blood back in their body. It's just like they crave that. Humans crave human interaction and touch. Mm-hmm. That's the way God created us.
Well, it's one of our basic needs.
Absolutely.
It's
So you can imagine as children experience this, what that could look like.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about this in every episode, which I think is great, but just encouraging professional counseling, biblical counseling. These are things that, again, and I want to take one step backwards real quick, because I dislike when we hone in on a topic and we forget about the people who are listening to this. Like maybe they're thinking about it in third party, like, "Oh, my children are dealing with this." But I want to talk to you as a listener. Maybe you are the one who has felt abandonment in your life, and that you are struggling with that in dealing with your children, or dealing with that with your spouse. So if you have experienced abandonment, I want to encourage you, one, it's not too late to seek help. And getting counseling and getting with a trusted counselor is a great first step. I know we are here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We own a counseling center called 7 Therapy. We love and love to love on people and help them. But maybe you're in an area where you don't know where to go find a counselor. So you can talk to a friend. You can talk to somebody maybe at your church. You can also go on, sites like Psychology Today and search to find a counselor in your area. I remember a woman once told me after she called me and booked an incoming intake session, she said at the end of it, "That's the hardest and bravest thing I've ever done."
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I never considered that. But I know there are so many people out there that are absolutely controlled by fear that they cannot go seek help.
Yeah.
That's such a sign of weakness that they can't do it, or so fearful of what they might say and how somebody may receive that.
Yeah.
So I just want to break that sense of fear if you're listening to this, and go take that step and get a great counseling relationship. But for kids, I think it's even more important because they need a safe space.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And some other things that you can do, you guys, other than seeking professional help, promoting the healthy coping mechanisms. We see that a lot, with especially with emotional abandonment. This is where kids shut down. They isolate, and, allowing them to space to feel, but also providing those healthy coping mechanisms. It could be that you see a kid, they're acting out in school, like their behavior is different. And they're trying to grab at anything and everything that they can to not feel what they're feeling or experience what they're experiencing. And so when you can see that those unhealthy coping mechanisms are at play, this is where, again, getting into counseling and given those tools and resources to help them process through that. Another thing is encouraging positive relationships, making sure they're around the right set of friends, that they're around, your
right
family,
they.
the right they. Yes, you said that well. We want people to be around us that are going to uplift us and, encourage us and be a support for us, and focusing on self-care. Depending on their age, self-care may not be a thing, but that's something that we've taught our son. And it's like, hey, you need rest. Like, you've been going, you've had sports, you've had school, you've had all this stuff going on. Take a day for rest. Take a day to go do something other than what you're normally doing.
It just occurred to me, I don't condone missing school ever. Please hear me on that one. But I'm going to put this as a piece of advice. Your kids burn every day hard. If you want to maybe love on them in a unique way, grab them that morning and say, you know what, today's going to be our day. We're going to go and spend the day together.
Yeah.
And just give them an opportunity to open themselves up, get them out of their normal routine, and just love on them that way. Abandonment exists as a tactic of the enemy to get us to distrust people. And I just want to encourage you, number one, if you're listening to this and you've experienced this, whether it's a physical abandonment, an emotional abandonment, I've even heard spiritual abandonment in a lot of ways. Whatever you're hurting from, I encourage you, number one, go get some help. And number two, this is in no particular order, I encourage you to find a great Bible-based church. Just find community, find people that are going to help you heal. The right they is very important for not only you, but for your children as well. Great children's ministry. There are resources out there. And if you've listened this long to this podcast and you're listening to the sound of my voice, then it affects you. So I'm just going to encourage you to step out in faith and go take a corrective action with healing. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Therapy. Next week, we're going to be back again answering more audience questions. If you have a question you'd love us to answer, please email us at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com, and Vanessa and I will try our best to tackle the subject. So, guys, y'all take care and have a wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.